Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. For those I haven't met yet, I'm Sharron Cox. I'm the CEO of CNA USA. We're an executive search firm working in the life sciences and nonprofit space. And I'm also the host of She Leads Biotech. Now, back in the nuclear winter of 2024, when funding was tight and hiring was even tighter, one of the things that I wanted to do was to continue to celebrate amazing people that were doing incredible work in the space in very, very difficult circumstances. And so I came up with the idea of doing a podcast, and people said to me, why the title? And I said, because the title has women in it. And I said, well, why not? We already know that men do an incredible job in the space, but what I wanted to do was focus on a smaller demographic that really doesn't get as much celebration as they should, and don't celebrate themselves as much as they should, right? So that's how She Leads Biotech was born. And it was only supposed to be a 10-episode, one season, one and done, but it resonated, and so we're now into season 4. And today I'm really pleased to bring She Leads Biotech to the Advanced Therapies conference to do something that we've not done before, and that's to have a conversation to a live audience to celebrate not just one incredible person, but 3 incredible women who represent the full journey of this industry, from innovation to clinical adoption, manufacturing and scale. So before we go any further, let me introduce you to my guests today. Mimi Healy, the CEO of Stimulus Bio, is a serial builder, commercialization expert, and a leader who's taken companies from concept to scale and acquisition. Amy Christenson is the executive director and medical affairs lead for Beacon Therapeutics, a leader at the intersection of science, clinical trust, and real-world adoption in gene therapy and beyond. And last but not least, Jennifer MacDonald, COO of Advanced Regenerative Manufacturing Institute, which reads as ARMI, which is fitting because she is a veteran. Thank you for your service. Operating at the national infrastructure level to help ensure advanced therapies can be delivered at scale to people who need them. So one things that I do, let's get started. The first questions I always ask when anybody's on the podcast is why? Why did you get set up in this space? Did you pick it? Did it pick you? Somebody buy you a chemistry set? Or you watched the movie Gattaca and said, I need to be making that happen. So, Mimi, how did you find yourself here?
Well, my journey was one of those of many of my startup companies, which is you want to go from A to B and you take the circuitous route of LMNOP-WXYZ before you get back to B. I'm really thrilled that the last part of my career got to end up here in advanced therapies. I started out in life sciences and developing diagnostics and instrumentation. So at that level, I was able to help people, but it seems like now it's so much closer to the patient, and this field is it's so hard. At the same time, it's so rewarding to get to the end of the day. And so I think it was a combination of, you always look for opportunities, but this one, I kind of tripped and fell, and I was lucky enough to be afforded the opportunity to end up here before I hang my hat up. So,
excellent. And Amy, what about you?
Sure. It chose me. I did not think that I would be here. I am a pharmacist by training and started out my career like a lot of pharmacists and wanted to help patients directly. And then I burned out and I found my way into pharma, into mid-sized pharma, big pharma, small pharma. Throughout that journey of being in pharma, I developed a pretty large network and I spent a lot of time cultivating that network. And one day that network came calling at a conference. I was working in my small biotech company that I was at before I was at Beacon. And a colleague of mine that I've known for 20 years was at the conference that I was at in the retina space. And he said, we're building a company. It's ophthalmic gene therapy. Are you interested? And I said, what? I'm not sure that I'm what you need. And they're like, we need somebody who has medical affairs experience, who's interested in building medical affairs, who can be innovative, have learning agility, figure it out as she goes, and I've known you for a long time. Will you consider it? And I said, I'll think about it. And then he pursued me, and they came after me, and I found out what Beacon had to offer and the gene therapy that we're developing in ophthalmology that is so impactful in patients' lives, to the point that I don't think I've worked on any product that has this much impact, that really changes patients' lives. So that's why I've been at Beacon for over 2 years now, is because of that patient impact.
Excellent, excellent. And Jen, tell me yours was because you got a chemistry set.
I did actually receive a chemistry set once upon a time, and I'll go ahead and make it unanimous. This inspiring space chose me. My first love was medicine. And through medicine, I found my way into a love for policy and came to understand the broader operations in medicine and the way that impacts how people receive care, how people access care, how that matters in their lives. And through policy and operations, I came to understand how important, how critically important to the future and to anyone who wants to see change and a better future achieved, how important innovation is. That led me into biotech. That led me into my time with ARMI with an I. And I was delighted to find in this environment bold innovators, as those on this stage that I have the honor of being here with today, who have the grit and resiliency to see an idea all the way through to impact. That's the joy of this space, and I'm delighted that somehow this found me.
Brilliant. I'm glad it found you as well. So, which actually leads us into our next question. Looking at that breakthrough to patient impact, and I'll stay with you, Jennifer. What does it take to move advanced therapies from promise to patient impact?
Vision, commitment, resiliency, the courage to overcome any challenge that happens to come in your path, and keep that vision in your sights. Keep moving, keep building, keep innovating, keep bringing a team together that can move past that specific challenge. That's why it's a delight to be with the Advanced Regenerative Manufacturing Institute. I'm coming to this from a family doc perspective, wanting to see life made better through next generation therapeutics, through advanced therapies. And what ARMI does is endeavor to be bridge over the innovation valley of death. We endeavor to partner across industry in ways that put us on the same side of the table as innovators and investors. Yes, the same side of the table as both. We want to see the industry succeed, and so we endeavor to generate services and provide capabilities that help innovators cross those barriers and help de-risk the entire end-to-end process from idea to impact in a way that draws investment into this space and can further amplify that impact.
Great. And what about from a commercialization aspect, Mimi? Do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I think that we have some hard challenges in this space. It's hard science, but it's also hard from the perspective of, I have a solution, now how do I get it all the way to the commercialization? So what are the things that we need to do to make sure that we have proof of concept? How much data do we need? What type of patients do we need to treat? Is this therapy something that can be used across the board? Is it for a specific case? There's always difficulties that come while you're going through this commercialization process that include things like, oops, where'd my funding go? Right? So I think it's really important your network is really important to focus on the thing that you're very good at and let people help you that are good at the other parts of the thing, because nobody's good at one thing.
Right. It's working as that team, right?
100%.
Together, which us women are actually pretty good at doing, right? It's not bad. And what about from a clinical perspective, Amy? Do you have anything to add to that?
Similar to what you're saying is that we have these great ideas, but we need to get them to the market. So I think the way that we look at it is what is going to be impactful to the patient, what's going to help us get approved, and then at the end of the day, thinking about how do we educate the patients, the payers, and the healthcare providers. And so that's what my team is doing, is trying to make sure that we're covering any of the educational gaps so that we have advocates and educated folks that know what this therapy is and will want it if we are so successful in bringing it to market. And as well as I lead medical affairs, but also patient advocacy. So we work really tightly with patient advocacy and help them with their educational initiatives to fill those educational gaps.
All right, and we're going to move on to a question now. It was actually covered a couple of times yesterday, and I think this is an interesting conversation to have. And I want to start with Amy. What surprised you most when you were stepping into senior leadership?
Well, you were talking about this a little bit before when we were chatting, how different your skills need to be in order to lead versus be an individual contributor and a subject matter expert. I had no idea. My first leadership job, I just started managing someone and just told them how to do things. Here, this is how I did it. That should work for you, right? Because that's how I did it. And then I the company downsized and I moved to another company. I moved to Genentech. And Genentech had a very rigorous leadership development department where at least in my department, before you could move into a leadership position, you had to go through an assessment and management training. And it really opened my eyes. It was a lot of feedback. It was hard. It was not a skill set that I had learned in any school or any job, but it really armed me with the ability to understand how to be a much better leader, so that when I did get promoted, I understood I needed to be better at listening, asking questions, leading people to the answer but not giving it to them, giving feedback in a very empathetic but direct way. And all of those skills are really uncomfortable at first when I first started doing them because I hadn't done it. And now I've been doing it over and over again. And that is the way that I have been able to build trust. My very first direct report when I was at Genentech, I employed all those skills, probably a little clunky at first, but allowed him to move forward very quickly, take over work that I was doing, improve it. He had a lot more impact, and it helped serve him for his current career move, which is he works in partnering now. But he's part of my network. He still trusts me. We still have conversations. And that's part of that, building your trust and being a leader versus just managing tasks and managing a person.
Yeah, definitely. I know my very first job as a manager, I was so bad at it. I mean, just so bad. And apparently people were too scared of me to tell me how bad I was at it. But I really didn't know. I was promoted because I was good at what I did as an operator, but that did not translate into management at all. And I, like you, just thought, as if you just do what I do, you'll be fine. It's all going to be magical. And it really wasn't, until somebody all the staff kept leaving. I didn't understand why that was happening either. And then somebody who was leaving decided that they weren't scared enough of me to actually try and help me and say, look, you're pretty scary, but you're also not a good manager. You're not a good leader. And And I was like, oh, okay, personal. But I took that and actually asked the company I worked with for a demotion to, and please put me with somebody who is a good manager, and let me learn how to, and it's completely different skill set that you need, right? Mimi, what's your, from a CEO perspective, you led and managed lots of people. What's your take on it?
Well, I don't know that anybody ever does a very good job of, okay, you're a great operator, you're going to get a promotion, and then we're going to help you do that. I mean, you can be in a large company and you go through that process, but it's such a change. It's like when you go, like you're the big man on campus when you're in high school and you're like, yeah, I'm going to kill it out there. And then you go to college and like everybody else in college is the same, they're better than you. And you're like, wait, what happened, right? So when you go from I don't know anybody who just starts out as a manager, right? So all of us go through this process and we're at the top of our class, and then we get chucked in to a position where you don't have it. And even if they teach you, even if you go through classes about how to be a manager, you still have to find yourself, and you also have to be able to stop. And nobody says, oh, wait, I need to spend this much of my time like thinking about other people. And so you're trying to be a good manager, and so you're worried about you, but you actually need to spend the time to worry about the people that you're managing and understand them and have empathy for them. And I think one of the biggest things about being a leader is that you need to be confident in what you know, but you gotta let go of the ego. Because if you're so worried about you, like, oh my God, I wore this outfit yesterday, and everybody's going to know I wore this. Nobody cares about what they care about them. So you also have to care about them. And so I think that when you get to that role, you need to take responsibility for yourself, and you need to say, I'm moving into this management role. If I'm in a small company and I'm moving into a management role and they don't have a program like Genentech, guess what there is? YouTube, Google, AI, right? There's all kinds of tools that you can use to help yourself become a better manager along the way. So I think understanding that when you take a new job, not only is you have to worry about you in your job to perform well, but you have to worry about the people who perform, because the best leader is the person who teaches all their people how to manage up, yep, as well as manage down.
Yep. And what about you, Jen? Have you got a thought on this?
I do, yes. And my primary thought, Sharron, is thank you for bringing these brilliant women on the stage and allowing me to be a part of it, because I am so enjoying this. And what Amy and Mimi just said is so very resonant on my end. That transition from individual contributor, from operator to leader is never a smooth one. You're applauded early in your career for your hustle, for your contribution, for your ideas, for your ability to execute and deliver on that assigned task or your self-assigned task. And suddenly, as you transition into a leadership role, the emphasis is, as you said, Mimi, on the empathy, on your vulnerability, on your ability to be comfortable in your own skin in tough situations and steady and see in others their greatest aptitude, what they want for themselves. A really, truly brilliant mentor of mine who had, at this time in my life, been leading teams for about as many decades as I'd been alive, said to me, this next role you're going to take is much more about seeing other people's strengths than it is about using your own. Yep. Didn't know what she meant at the time.
Yep.
I stumbled plenty in figuring out what she meant.
Yep.
But years and years later, I am still using that advice, and that's truly what leading is. It's the ability to see in your team their strengths and aptitudes and aspirations and put those toward an objective, see the same in your partners, in your network, and be able to piece it all together to an outcome.
So another area that I want to touch on, and Mimi, maybe you can start with this one. Can you tell me about a major call you made without perfect evidence?
I'm a serial entrepreneur, so kind of the last 25 years have been making calls without having all the information. Sometimes I think it's really important to to take, what was that game? You Want to Be a Millionaire? And you have like, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? And you have the call a friend, like,
50-50.
50-50.
Ask the audience.
Yeah, exactly. Now I can at least, now I can Copilot or Chat GPT something. It'll give me some answer, whether it's right or not. I think one of the things is that from my perspective, in having startup companies and there's a lot of pressure. There's lots of pressure even if you work at a big company, but at a small company, I'm responsible for people's families and their lives. And so when I make a decision, it's kind of weighty up here on these shoulders. And so never stop getting as much information as you can. Again, call a friend, because if you're the smartest person in the room, right? You're in the wrong room, right? And so call the people who know. So there's a lot of things that I didn't know when I became the CEO. And the most important thing to me was my network, because I didn't know many of the answers, but I knew somebody who would walk through the thinking with me, who would know the answer, because sometimes it's an answer nobody knows and you just have to take a bet on what that is.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. And Amy, from a sort of evidence medical strategy perspective, what can you add to that?
Feels like everything we're doing, we have incomplete information because we're building, nothing's ever been in this space before. This rare disease has never had a therapeutic on-label or off-label. So we are really building our entire medical strategy with the information that we have. We have some data, we have market research, we have our experts that we've asked information on. So for things like which healthcare providers do we interact with and engage with, and who do I plan to send my team out to see, I've got a plan. I know it's going to change, and that's okay, but you got to start somewhere. So I use the information that I have, and my biggest key here is to hire the right people to execute. So I hired 2 people. They're hybrid field and medical affairs roles. I wanted people that had medical affairs experience, hopefully therapeutic area experience, maybe not specifically in this small rare disease, but in retina and ophthalmology, and learning agility and learning mindset. And I found 2 of the best, one through my network and one vetted through my network, and they're great. They come in, they know there's a big challenge, they know we don't have all the information, but they're in it with me to figure it out. And we already have a built-in plan for, as we get more information, as we collect more insights, how are we going to change this plan? And what is that going to mean? And then how can we bring that back to have impact on the rest of the company and how we need to change other plans? So it's really, I'm very lucky that I found 2 people that are really willing to be in this with me.
And do you think that that's a female superpower to kind of figure it out as you go? And the amount of women that I've spoken to that said, we were kind of flying the plane while we were building it, sort of thing. And I hear that a lot. Maybe just because I don't talk to more women than I do men, but I seem to hear that coming from women. Would you say that's a very fair, it's a superpower women have that we just
don't always
figure it out?
Sometimes we tap into it. Well, the 2 people that I hired are 2 women, but I also have another team member that I hired before them who's a man, and he is also great. So I don't know if it's exactly a female superpower, but I do, in my experience, I've had a lot more female coworkers, I think, that have that kind of mindset. So, but I don't think it's universal.
No, and I didn't know whether it was from a, that kind of nurture perspective that you, just in general, if you've got, 3 kids going in different directions and you don't know what any of them are doing and you've got to bring them back and put them into boxes is a skill that I think that women tend to master quite well. But I agree, it's not universal. But Jennifer, what about from a manufacturing readiness? You got a story for us there?
I do. The origin, I think, of your question began with making those tough calls when you don't have all of the information that you need. And from a manufacturing perspective, that happens all the time.
Right.
We as an institute often engage companies that are thinking about, when do I invest in automation? How do I think about the process elements and when I begin to engage the FDA? And we're counseling through those questions. And what I find most important in those early discussions is the ability to push past information that's comfortable. The ability to ask questions that are from a different perspective, from an interdisciplinary perspective, perhaps.
Yep.
Not just ask what could go right and how could we get to the answer I'm hoping to hear, but what could go wrong? Poke holes in this, please. How do I think about this from another perspective? How do I even look at another industry that has automated in the past and think about what that means for my moment now? That ability to push beyond what's comfortable and look at things from a new angle, I find exceptionally important. And it's really a sign of an innovator who wants to go all the way to the impact being described on this stage.
And I know it was a big topic in last year's Advanced Therapies Week about the manufacturing bottleneck that was holding back the progress. Do you see coming into 2026 that those areas are being addressed and that there's, the bottleneck will be kind of released?
I do. There's quite a long road to walk yet for that to be fully solved. We are, as announced at this conference, we're in the tens of thousands of patients treated with cell therapies now, but we need to be in the millions. We all know that. We need to be in the tens of millions. We need to be in the hundreds of millions. There's road yet to walk there. But actually, just this week, with members who are a part of our nationwide network at the Institute, there is a scalable, modular, automated, and closed manufacturing platform installed at the FDA's iTeams facility. This is happening. The FDA is engaged. They are seeing the promise of automated manufacturing technologies, including moving forward, machine learning and AI enabled, that will be able to contribute to our ability to scale and contribute to the cost efficacy of not just product development, but distribution. And so I do see it on the very near-term horizon.
Excellent. Well, that's always a good sign. So pleased about that. Okay, my next question is all about mentorship. And the next generation. And, as Whitney Houston sang, I believe the children are the future. But today's students are tomorrow's leaders. So let me start with you on this, Mimi. What do today's leaders owe the next generation coming into the field now?
I think that I don't think it just applies to our field. I think it applies to us as people who want to make sure that the next generation takes off. I think the sooner that we can expose people to the industry, the sooner we can, the broader that we can. When I was growing up, there's here you can be a fireman, you can be a mechanic, or you can go to college, right? Now, look on your phone. There's so many, it's not multiple choice anymore. It's a blank piece of paper, like an essay. Here's 475,000 different kinds of jobs you can have. And so the more experiences that we allow the younger generation to have. So last year we had 6 people in our lab. My company's pretty small. We had 6 people in the lab. And we took on 2 summer interns that were in high school, and we took on another graduate student for the summer, even though we had a tiny, small company, and they learned a lot. And our graduate student went on, finished her degree, and now she works for us full time. So there's always, you put something in and people go, oh my God, interns are so much work. But even if they don't come back to your company, you're helping the world as a whole by helping people understand. I think one of the things that's really important is what I tell them a lot is, it's not so much that you learn what you like, because there's so many things that you could like, but it's to learn what you don't like to do. And I think that carries on when you talk about you hired 3 really great people and you guys work as a good team. So again, put your ego over here and say, what are the things that I don't like to do? Because generally the things you don't like to do are the things that you're not good at.
Yep.
It's really important for us to, again, is it about you or is it about helping everybody?
Okay. And Amy, what can you tell? Coaching, training, that next generation. I know that that's something that's very important to you. Have you got a story you can tell us?
Well, first of all, I am committed to continuing to become a better version of myself as a leader on a regular basis. So I think that's really important, to start off as a role model. But I have just promoted one of my people. He knows, but I don't think anybody else knows. Nah, nobody else is here. And he's never been a manager before. He's never led anybody before, other than he's an ophthalmologist by training, so he had to lead residents and so on. But he's never been a leader within our space. And so my commitment to him when I announced that he will be taking on a direct report is that here are my expectations, here's what I've been challenged with, and then here are some resources. Although we don't have the Genentech, machine of leadership development and coaching and the time to commit before he has to start taking on this role, I can give him what I can give him, and I can be his mentor as well as his boss on this journey, because it's important to me as he becomes a manager and I'm a manager of a manager. He needs to do that well because our team needs to work well together. So that's my commitment, is to be his mentor, and also to recommend he find another mentor with a leadership style that he either at our company or elsewhere, a leadership style that resonates with him, so he has somebody to bounce ideas off of and to talk about challenges with, because it's not easy, as we've all talked about. And I will let him know it's a bit of a rocky road that you're going to have, and it's going to feel uncomfortable. And you're going to have to be comfortable feeling uncomfortable.
But look at the difference of doing that rocky road alone versus having somebody there as that support mechanism. And I just think it's so important. The question that we looked at earlier about going into leadership before you're ready, even just to have one person within the company that's already there that is going to mentor you through those difficult times that are going to happen. They're going to be difficult times, but to have somebody there to support you along the way has got to make a huge amount of difference. And Jennifer, what about sort of you've got like a workforce on a national scale? What can you add to that?
Yes, it's part of our responsibility as a federally backed public-private partnership to focus on and grow the national biotech workforce. And in doing so, I've found that it's as much the inspiration we provide as the information we provide that makes a difference. As I've learned a great deal about this space from our biotech educators, they've described to me the research that shows that most of us form a concept of who we might be as a professional around 8th grade, sometimes sooner.
Wow.
And we start to think, these doors are open to me, or they're not. I'm capable of this, or I'm not, based on the life experiences we have, the role models we have, the people, as Amy was just describing, who give us a hand up into what we might become next and see the potential in us. But 8th grade is pretty early on. That's before most people have thought, hey, I might become a regulatory specialist one day, right? There's not every 14-year-old out there raising their hand, but hey, maybe this would be their love. And so we promote a great deal of awareness and then aim to form a network across the country of educators at a K through 12 level and also at a community college and higher ed level to make sure that we can connect that awareness to an action and help people find their way toward biotech, whatever that means for them. Yeah. We need legal professionals in this space.
Yeah.
And we need scientists, of course, and we need leaders and innovators and chief people officers who will help this industry grow. No matter, I think, where the personal interest lies, there's relevance to this broader industry space.
And I think I've heard that many times in previous episodes of the podcast, where I've asked the question of somebody, what advice would you give to somebody coming into the space now? And it's generally don't put yourself only in one lane. It's such a big space. There's so much that you could get involved in, and try it. Try them all. If one doesn't work, move across to somewhere else and see what that's all about. But keeping open to it. Right? If only there was when I was 5 and knew that I wanted to be a Broadway star, if only there was somebody there to help me along my way, but clearly that was not going to happen. So, okay, so we've got a bit of a quick fire round, but we're good for time, so it doesn't have to be as quick fire as we thought it might have to be. To each of you, what do you ignore now that you used to worry about? Who wants to start?
Who's going the quickest?
I'm happy to.
Really, it doesn't need to be quick anymore. Oh. Go for it.
With time, I have learned to ignore the detractors, the "it can't be done" narrative. There's a James Baldwin quote I just love, which is, "Those who say it can't be done are usually interrupted by others doing it." And I find that tuning out the "it can't be done," "it's not possible," "here are all the barriers in the path" narrative allows you to focus on executing and making it happen.
I'm more selective on my filter on who's giving me feedback. Not everyone giving me feedback on how to improve deserve the same amount of weight. So I have my mentors and my trusted colleagues that I go to get real feedback on what I really need to do to improve, because I'm committed to that personal improvement. But I know that there are a lot of other people that have given me feedback over the years, and I have been moving. Oh, I got to do this. Oh, I got to do this. I have to be perfect. I got to be perfect to that person, and perfect to that person, and perfect to that person. And that has sort of taken the power away from me, and I don't do that anymore. Now I hold the power to improve based on what my trusted colleagues are telling me. And I try not to think that I am ever going to be perfect ever, so I've given that up as well.
Okay, all right. And Mimi, what do you ignore now that you used to bother you?
I was never perfect. I never did anything perfect, so I didn't have that riding around with me. But
I was never perfect, but I thought I needed to be.
But I think that some of the things that we think about, like, should we be perfect? Again, oh, I wore this outfit, somebody's going to say, all of that is just noise. It doesn't matter. And
yep.
I'm going to bet to many of us in this, we're in a challenging field, right? And so no just means it's just a challenge word for us, right? No. Oh, well,
it might be not yet,
yeah,
or
and
not
also,
now.
Like, I don't actually ignore no, but I still consider no a challenge.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I tell people who work for me is, don't tell me no, tell me how long, tell me how much, tell me what are the resources and tools that you need to do the thing, and then we'll decide whether it's yes or no. But don't just come out with "it can't be done," because it's not a thing. And if you refuse "it can't be done," then we'll find a way.
And I think if we go with that, nothing would ever have got done, would it?
Exactly.
It's like,
That's right.
Nothing would be going. And I was taught years ago that no is just a request for more information.
Exactly.
And so it's up to you to provide what is the information that I need to provide then, so that we can move beyond the no. So, okay. Well, we've got our closer question now, which I saved till last because I'm looking for a crystal ball moment from each of you. What do you think will define advanced therapies in 2026, and what should leaders prepare for now? Who wants to take it?
Scale.
Okay.
This is the year that leaders like those on this stage achieve outcomes that put advanced therapies in the public consciousness in a new way. And I think we must be prepared for the scale to deliver those to the patients who will want to take these therapies into their lives, and to the hospital systems and clinical systems that will want to adopt them.
Okay. Amy, what do you think?
I feel a tremendous amount of pressure because our lead gene therapy asset is reading out our pivotal trial later this year. And being one of the most near-term gene therapies, we feel a lot of pressure to do it right. So hopefully everything is positive. Because we really want to bring this to patients. These patients have been waiting. There have been other gene therapies that have not made it past their clinical trials, and we want to bring this to patients. So I think that's going to define a lot of, well, it'll definitely define our company, I'll tell you that much, but it will define also how everyone sees gene therapies and the success that gene therapies can have in clinical trials and bringing, hopefully, to submission to regulatory authorities. But talking about planning, the pressure is also on us to plan for success and be ready for when it does read out positive. We've got to be ready and build our company very quickly. We're very lean, as I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. We only have so much funding. But in order to execute all of our commercialization plans, we really need to ramp up people, processes, things, all the things.
Yep.
But we also have to plan for if it doesn't read out positive, and we have to plan for what that means to the community, what that means to patients, what that means to advanced therapies, and what that means to us as a company and my team as well.
And that's a scary thing to have to do, isn't it? To actually plan to fail. Because we talked about it earlier. I'm one of those people. I'm a worst case scenario person. Tell me something, I will immediately go to what's the worst case scenario for this. And then if in my head I can deal with that, then I'm like, okay, we can move on now because it doesn't matter what. But with these kind of things, it's right to the wire, and everybody's excited, and it must be hard not to have that excitement build, but to be prepared so that the crushing blow isn't as crushing. Has anybody else got a view on that?
I think that, the question is, what are we going to plan for in 2026?
Yep.
I guarantee you, we already have the plan. Like the plan is already made, and what we're planning for now is 2027.
Okay.
You have to do that. And then even especially, so like I said, a startup company, it changes every day. What are the things that make it change? And so make your plan and then change it. Because if you don't start out with something, then what you haven't done is your exercise of what's the DRP, your disaster recovery plan.
Yep.
And what happens when you take everything that you're supposed to do in your plan and you say, what happens when this fails? And what happens when this fails? And what happens when this fails? And hopefully you never have to do any of those mitigated plans that you have, but they're already there. And if you don't take the time to plan for those things before they happen, you never get ahead of the 8 ball to do that. I think that's a super important thing to have. And then one of my companies was acquired, and I went through all the plans that I had, and they went, how are you so confident that it's going to work? And I said, I have no confidence that any of it's going to work, but I do know what I'm going to do when it fails. And if everything fails, I can still do this at the end of the day.
Right.
So that was a good one.
Okay, there you go. Well, I think we've covered the questions that we had. Is there anybody that has any questions for our illustrious panel here that we can answer? There is a microphone in the middle, so if you want to make sure you're heard, you can just kind of go and stand to the microphone or shout, whichever is easier.
What advice would you give to a young woman in today's world and society who's entering the field of biotech and wants to be a biotech executive? Are there any words of wisdom that you would give that are relevant for today and the economic times of today?
Mimi, as the CEO, do you want to take that one?
How much time do we have?
We're all right. We're good for time for 10 minutes.
Yeah, we have 10 minutes. Great. Okay. It'll take me an hour and 10 minutes to. No, I think a lot of it is. I think a lot of it depends on what you want to do and where you want to go and what your interests are. I think the biggest thing is that fit is an important thing. That it's only a 3-letter word, and I think people don't pay enough attention to fit. And I mean, especially when you're a woman, because where does this job today fit in my career, but where does it fit with my family or my potential family or what I want to do next? And so when people talk a lot now about family planning and, back when I was growing up, it was just like, oops, well, okay, we'll go what's the disaster recovery plan for that?
Where's plan B now?
Yeah. So I think that interest is important, but where you are, so, don't plan to start your startup company when you have teenagers. Because that just won't work, right? So you have some window there between my kids are babies and now my kids are at the next step and now they're teenagers, and when do you need to be there to do that, and what job will allow you to do that? What people do you have around you that can support you while you're doing those types of things? And then that way you don't have to give up your career. You still get to manage your family, whatever that looks like to you as a family. You could still do those types of things. And so to me, I think the word that I would say is pay attention to the fit. Is the company that you're at now a good fit for you? If you want to move quickly up the ladder, you might not want to start at the biggest company that you can get a job at, because you won't be able to experience a lot of different things. But if you start at a small startup company, you won't necessarily learn how to do things the
right way.
Yeah, well, I was trying to find it, right?
Who's going to find the right way to say that?
I was going to say that. Oh, thanks for pitching in there.
I think because all of our careers kind of have done this, gone all over the place. There's no direct route. And I mean, I never thought that I would be here in this role. And I never thought I've had commercial roles. I've had analytics roles. I've had field medical roles, medical affairs roles. I think finding the right company and the right cultural fit for you and who you're going to enjoy working with is really important. I didn't put a lot of stock in that when I started, but I realize now how important, and I just got really lucky in the jobs that I've gotten and how great the fit was and the team was. But think about your career not in a straight line, but be open to other opportunities. And you might get that at a smaller company, maybe not 12 people. That might be a little bit too small, but starting at a smaller company where you can learn and be flexible and see different things depends on what you're looking for. Because I will say that going to a large company, I got a lot of opportunities to do a lot of different things because there are a ton of different roles, and there's training and there's mentorship, and it's purposeful. It depends on the large company. They're not all like that. And of course now the era we're in with a lot of downsizing, it's not exactly the same as it was when I was there. But I think I was always open to the opportunities and talking to a lot of people and developing my network so that when an opportunity, maybe in something I never considered, became available but might have been the right fit for me, I had someone I could talk to about it, and they may have helped shepherd me into that role. So I think it's going in with a very open mind, because things will also continue to change. I mean, big companies change, small companies change. But that learning mindset, learning agility, I've said it a bunch of times, is so important. Always be curious. Always be thinking about what you want to do. And I think that will help you in your career.
And I'll just build on that. Even the things that you think are a wrong turn at first can turn out to be your path if you are approaching it with that learning mindset. If you are going into every experience open, not just to learning what you're specifically focused on and there to learn, but what might present itself in the course of that experience, that may illuminate your path.
Can I add one more thing?
Of course.
Quick? also be prepared to be discouraged. I don't know if anybody else has been told no when they've applied for jobs. There was one point in my career, I think I applied to 6 different leadership roles and I got 0. And I was so frustrated. I was so upset at myself. I'm doing something wrong. Why is this not working out? I have all these skills. I have all this to bring. I have the therapy area experience, because in medical affairs that often tends to be a driver of decision making. Is, do you know this space? Do you know how to lead people in this space? I got frustrated and I knew I needed to make a change in myself and my mindset. And so I did. And I pivoted. I went to a different company and tried out something new. And that led me to this path to be here. But I always believed in myself that I could be a leader. I could bring these skill sets somewhere else and I could continue to advance my career. I just needed to find that right fit. But man, did I have a lot of discouragement in my career. So that is perfectly normal. I hear it a lot. Some people are just really lucky, but most people have some discouragement.
And failure. Don't be afraid to fail, I think, is celebrate failure, because that's the way to get to the next step. I hear that so many times.
Something that I think is super important. Raise your hand. Say yes. Volunteer for anything. It sets you out of the crowd unbelievably. If somebody knows, especially if you know, here's your manager and they have 10 people working for them. If you're the person they can always depend, I'll do it. Are you scared? Do you know what you're doing? No. Volunteer anyway. Go do it. Take the opportunities. Pay attention. Look for it. You'll be scared. Big deal. You'll be fine. What's the worst that can happen? Oh, you got a promotion. Good on you.
Now I've got to lead people and I don't know how to do it.
I don't know how to do that either.
I think we've got time for one more quick question, if anybody has a question for us.
Yeah, I have a question. So if you had the opportunity to go back, and would you do the same things over again? Would you continue or would you change anything?
Great question.
That's a great question. Thank you for that question. I need to process for a second.
I'll go while you're processing. How's that, you guys? We're a good team already, right? I'm like, we need to...
Tag team. Okay, you go.
So some of the answer is yes and some of the answer is no. I've been incredibly lucky. I've had tons of opportunity. I've traveled all over the world. I know tons of people. I've had unbelievable experiences, and I wouldn't be where I was today if I didn't do all that stuff, which is kind of, you know, I guess you could say, well, that's a corny answer, right? But it's true. It's a real answer. And I think one of the things that's really important when we talked about, you know, if somebody else tells you no, and then you're like, I take that as a challenge, I'm going to go. One of the things that's important to learn, and I think probably this is my answer to the question, I wish I would have learned earlier what things to, you know, dig your cowboy boot heels in and say, no, we are doing this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And when you should stop and listen to somebody else, listen to the market, listen to the voice of customer, change what you're doing because you should. And being able to make that difference makes all the difference in the world in the success of your companies and in your career.
We got 1 more minute left if whoever wants to pick that up.
I don't think I would do anything differently. Honestly, I mean, I think maybe I wish I could see where I am now doing what I've wanted to do and spent a lot of my career trying to get to. I think I wish I could go back and tell myself, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
This is just a diversion in your path, and you don't have to stress out about it so much. You don't have to be so anxious that people don't believe in you. Don't worry about it. Believe in yourself and sort of take back that control. So I wouldn't change my path. I would change how I handle it.
And I'll just double down. There are things I wish I had learned or implemented that learning earlier, but ultimately, especially in the hard moments, especially in the moments that take grit and resilience, I'm grateful for every wrong turn and every scar, because ultimately it gives you wisdom.
Excellent. Hope that answered your question. Well, listen, that's the end of our session. Thank you so much. Thank you to my panel. Amazing, amazing women. Thank you for joining us. She Leads Biotech is available on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple. And we do drop a new episode every Friday. So we've got 4 seasons you can start to work your way through and enjoy. But thank you very much for coming.